Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I think we were supposed to start at 1:15, so I guess we'll get started. Thank you for spending a couple of hours with us. My name is Boyle. I'm the project manager of the Community Innovation Fund. And the Community Innovation Fund is a pilot project, and it's part of the Social Partnership Initiative, which is funded by Employment and Social Development Canada. And that's part of their requirement for Canada's Official Languages 2013-2018 roadmap. So the Quebec Community Groups Network, for whom I work, is the intermediary in this project. And the QCGN has funneled the funds from ESDC to 10 English language community organizations from across the province. And this has allowed them to develop and implement projects that address the social and economic needs of vulnerable youth, seniors, and newcomers. So this afternoon, you're going to hear the stories of 5 of our groups, 5 of these organizations who received funding. They've all developed partnership-driven projects looking at skills training, education, and/or employment for English-speaking youth and young adults. You'll learn about their innovative approaches, the challenges they encountered, the lessons they learned, and it's going to highlight the link between their projects and the vitality of our English-speaking communities of Quebec. There's going to be an opportunity to ask questions after each presentation. So with no further ado, we'll begin with Youth Employment Services, Annalise Iten, who is Director of Job Search Program and also a counselor.
Okay, so hi everybody, I'm Annalise, and first I just want to say thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today, and what a great project that we have launched with the help of the QCGN. So just a little bit of information around, yes, for those of you who don't know us, we're a community organization. Our mandate is to service the English language community of Quebec. And we do that in a variety of different ways. We do that through job search and career development. We do that to help artists. We do that to help entrepreneurs. And also we're doing a lot of work with women in STEM. So this is what we've been doing. And 20 years is actually inaccurate. It's more around the 24-year mark. So very proud of that as well. So to kind of open up the project, I'll let you just sort of glance over this, but ultimately, one of the things that we're seeing is that the majority of newcomers that we greet at YES are second language English speakers, sometimes third and fourth. And this project has allowed us to service 70 newcomers. We expect that we're going to actually surpass that because we're in not even November, and already to date we've served 65 of those, so it's looking good, essentially. But the goal here is really to service clients who have been in Quebec for anywhere between 2 and 5 years. And what we're trying to do is use a variety of different approaches and interventions with those clients to help them build their skills, build their knowledge around what it takes to do a job search, depending on their field, how to access networks, how to get mentorship, how to sort of also, not lose out on all the stuff that they've accrued coming from where their countries of origins are, which I think is part of what I'll be able to show you as we move through the presentation. So here's what we're hearing from our clients. This is based on feedback, and over the years, obviously, we've also worked with newcomers, but this is really what we're getting. So the first thing is that clients that we see, the first thing that we talk about is a sense of loss of identity. Their professional identity, their social identity, their economic identity, and their cultural identity is often a miss, and this is something that's really big. We do a lot of intensive employment and sort of, life is happening, and we're trying to address those needs as well. A secondary thing is obviously skills and competencies and credentials are not recognized. And there's a kind of a little bit of a twist here with that, well, they have the skills and they have the competencies, it's just that their credentials aren't recognized, but in reality, they play on each other and it puts the client in a bit of a strange position. The third one is lack of support. So whether that's they don't have their family with them, they don't have networks here at all in terms of business and what have you, that has a huge impact for this population. 4, an absence of Canadian work experience, professional experience. This is also a really big issue because they do have experience, a lot of them working in multinational companies, and when they arrive here, the door's not always open so readily, so it's an issue. And of course, language barriers, French obviously being an issue, but as well as sort of how to conduct yourself in business communication, etiquette of business, the norms of the culture of workplace in Quebec is obviously going to be a bit different from their standpoint coming here. So I'm going to just address each one and sort of show you what our objectives are, and then show you what our approach is, okay? So the first thing is that our goal really is to understand where the client's coming from. So in this thing is just this idea of like they have unique stories, they have unique experience, and while some of them cross over, obviously, if you're a project manager, you work in supply chain management, yes, there are commonalities, but their story is also unique and we need to be paying attention to that. And part of it is to really help them to see that their skills matter, they count, they mean something, and to harness that. We really want to be harnessing that and supporting that and encouraging that in a way where they can look back on past successes and kind of say, oh, how can I implicate that here as well? So we do that through individual employment counseling. We call this intensive. We see our clients every 2 weeks. We see them about an hour each time. We are working on a variety of different concerns they have. So whether that's, let's say, their CV, and their CV oftentimes is 6 pages long. This is just an example that I could use that's been very recent. A newcomer arrives, they have a CV in their country. It's supposed to be 6 pages long. And they're coming here, and now I'm telling them, okay, so how am I going to get you to put it down to 2 pages? Because that's what our culture expects, or that's what our workplace expects. And what I'm asking them to do is to lose a part of their identity that they feel very tied to and they have a lot of pride around. And so it's working collaboratively with them to explain to them how this is going to work. We try to frame it in a way, my colleague Erin gave a great example of how she frames it for them, and she said, imagine you're watching a movie reel. That's your CV. Your CV now is more in the context of like what would happen in an interview. It's longer. It's the movie. It's the actual movie. And sometimes we have to use metaphors to help them understand that these are the necessary steps that they need to take. A lot of our clients, we're evaluating their education, their professional background, their language. I mean, we're not educators in language or ESL teachers, but we need to kind of see, okay, are they able to articulate well to an employer? Do they understand? How can we help them in any of these areas, whether it's English or French? Other things that we do is we really want to look again at their professional accomplishments back home. How did they trailblaze? How did they move up into certain positions that they held? They were making good money. They have good education. So how do we harness that and bring it back to where we are today? Do they have a support network here? What does that look like? Is it family? Is it professional contacts? Do they have anybody at all? Sometimes they don't. They really don't. And a lot of our clients, I'm sure you are well aware, Syria, they're leaving war-torn countries, Venezuela. We see a lot of those clients, so they're coming with a lot of stuff, and we really need to be the place where they have a sense of security and that they can talk to us about their experiences so that we can give them the necessary resources to get the help that they need or connect them with their own cultural communities. So this entails sort of their overall well-being. Are they motivated? Do they have a good outlook? What's important to them? What are their dreams? What are their aspirations? We want to really keep it in that place of positivity and support. So one of the most important things that we want to find out from them is exactly that. Professional successes back home. what they perceive right now as barriers to finding work. That's really key for us. And then we can work more collaboratively together and sort of set a plan out. And we do that to just really understand what their narrative looks like. The second one on the list that we put down was skills, competencies, and credentials not being recognized. And the objective here is really how do we harness that experience and place it here in a Quebec or Montreal or what have you context, like being here in Quebec. And how do we keep reminding them, because the messaging that they're saying they're receiving is, I'm not qualified, I'm not qualified, this is the repetitive messaging that we're receiving from them. And we're saying you are absolutely qualified and do not let anybody tell you differently. So we are the championers of them, and that sometimes in this relationship building that we're doing is really hard for them to trust, hard for them to accept, and hard for them also to advocate for themselves. So we're trying to give them that space to do that. We're providing career planning, planning towards their career or job search, as well as educational strategies that might be important for them. Maybe they want to go and do a graduate diploma. Maybe they want to do, maybe they want to totally, new country, new career. This is what I'm going to do. I have an opportunity now to completely change things over. So this is stuff that we try to look at. And our approach here is to really do specialized workshops. Here are some of the workshops that we are doing. We created 10. We think we're going to probably create a couple more, just to address some of the needs that we see that are coming up that maybe we weren't quite harnessing as well. But these are just some of them. We've brought in and partnered with volunteers who come in who were newcomers to give evening workshops and talk about their own journeys. And now they're in very good positions with companies here. And so that kind of gives a bit of a respite for them and hope for them to feel like, oh, I can do it too. So that's a really important thing. Goal setting is critical in this process. Newcomers, typically when they come, they go into francisation, which is super important for them to do. And then when they come out, there's kind of this gap of, I haven't worked in a year, because it usually takes about a year for them to complete that. And so there's a bit of concern around that. So goal setting around what are the steps that I need to do or take in order to get to that job that I really want. And evaluating the process. This is done very much one-on-one. This is really looked at from a holistic perspective. And it's very helpful to the client to know that they're not being judged. It's not like we set a target and you just get to the target. No, there's like a whole process that has to be thought about, has to be tailored to the client based on their unique needs and circumstances. The third one, whoops, I don't know what happened there. My boxes are off. The third one is a lack of supports, no networks, social, professional, cultural. This is a big one. And so our goal here really is to do everything that we can to advance that for them. We need to be connecting them to people in their communities, letting them know where they are. We need to ensure that they're getting the support they need through various other things, whether that be emotional support, psychological support. Maybe they don't know where to go to see a doctor. Maybe they can't get a doctor. I mean, there's a million different things here. Educational support, all kinds of things like that. And again, kind of building up those skills for them and providing a community where they can. It's going backwards, guys. Sorry. So our approach. So one of the things I was just talking earlier with some of the presenters in the room and saying how, these are focus, we call them focus groups, but actually they're support groups. And the support groups brings together about 15 individuals, in this case newcomers, where we talk about their experience. And this is a very important piece because what it does is it's bringing together people who are in a similar landscape, both internally and within their actual physical environment. And what it does is it said, oh, I'm not alone. Because what happens in job search, typically, whether we're all connected, whether you're Canadian and born here or you're not, we're all going to go through this sort of place of And so when you bring peer-to-peer mentorship or peer-to-peer strategy sharing together, that's super powerful, because if I'm talking to somebody else who's also immigrated, and they're here the same amount of time, and they have the same educational credentials, or you know, they have children, what have you, that's a link that is really powerful, and also those people help support each other in their job search. So this is like really, really important. We also provide mentorship. What's interesting with our mentorship program, I'm going to read you this because it's quite impressive. We recognize that a lot of our clients want mentors, but they're, you know, to be able to articulate really what you need and really what you want and what's meaningful to you in another language is really hard. So we decided, okay, we need to rethink this. So now we have mentors, not only English and French, Spanish, German, Arabic, Farsi, Italian, Polish, Thai, Persian, Dutch, Romanian, Portuguese, Mandarin, Bengali, and Hungarian. And we hope that yes, and we hope that we are continuing down that vein, because when you're telling your story, you need to tell it in the language that you feel most safe in, most comfortable in, and this is really also very important. And that also extends the community, extends the network. Community resources, another huge thing. There's so many amazing resources out there, and they don't know where they are. And they don't know how to access them, and that's another thing that we try to do. One of the things, especially with newcomers that we've been seeing, their finances are not in good stead. They're really broke. So what we're trying to do is, how do you get them out there and engaging in the community? So for example, there's Plein Air through Milton Park, which has really inexpensive outings with different families. You meet people from all over the place. You're practicing your languages. I mean, it's a really great thing, as well as encouraging them to connect with their own cultural communities and talk to people who have gone through the experience, and to share their words of wisdom and support them along the way. Number 4, an absence of Canadian experience. Am I doing okay on time? Faster, faster, faster. Okay, I'm going faster. So an absence of Canadian experience. So we really have to educate on the labor market. We do a lot of work off websites like, you know, Emploi Quebec, how to navigate that, jobs.gouv.ca. We're really trying to help them. And one of the issues that we're absolutely seeing with job seekers is like, they gotta get off the net. This is not how they're gonna do it. That's why networks are so important. 5 to 10% of your time needs to be online, and the rest of it needs to be through people. And we want to develop those skills so that they become autonomous in their job search. What they're learning here now, they can apply, they can share with friends, and so on and so forth. So this is really where we're trying to do. And again, our approach is through workshops. Here are some of the workshops that we have. Informational interviews, so the pressure's off about getting a job, but you're meeting people and you're conversing about, what did that look like for you? What was your path? And volunteering, a huge one. Get out there, don't stay at home, connect with people. Language barriers, the 5th one. Well, we all know that's the big elephant in the room. So we offer free French classes for our newcomers, just to really help them build confidence in speaking French, and also to get them that idea of business communication within a Quebec context, like what will it sound like, what will it be like, so that they're working on that twice a week. We run 16-hour French courses for them that they can attend. So that's that. Okay, so for us, the link between English-speaking community and newcomers is that here we have a really strong, diverse, and overlooked talent pool. Number 1, that's the big one. They want to stay here. They really want to stay here. And we have a brain drain on our hands, and these guys are getting job offers in Ontario, in Vancouver, in Halifax, back home in their own countries, and they're picking up and they're leaving. And that's our detriment, totally our detriment. And we have a labor shortage. So, I mean, it's super important that we find ways to integrate people. Fast, quick approach, a welcomed approach. This is super important. Okay, so results to date. Oh no, it's gonna make me load it all. Okay. This is just a snapshot, okay? So, results to date, these are the positions and the companies, so you have your positions on your left and the companies where these clients are working. And some of them are really phenomenal jobs. So they were having difficulty keeping the faith, and we said to them, we'll be your hope holder, and we'll wait with you, and we'll get you there, okay? So this is sort of what we're trying to do. So right now, 60% or over 60% of our clients to date have found jobs. So that's amazing, and they deserve so much applause for that, because it was really hard for a lot of them to get there. And we're still serving 11 people, and we're going to be serving more. As I said, I want to surpass our objectives. And then another 20% have returned to school. They're going to University of Montreal doing graduate diplomas. Some of them are doing work going to school to do IT security. We have somebody who's doing PhDs. We have other people doing masters. So it's moving. It's moving. It's really great. It's very exciting. Lessons learned. Okay, lessons learned. The timestamp for these individuals, 2 to 5 years. If I could make an invitation to say, could we please reduce that? We have people showing up at our organization who got off the plane literally last week, and they are raring to go. They are smart, they are hungry, they are ambitious, they want our help, and we're finding other ways to service them, but that would be a recommendation that I would absolutely try to see, because this is what we're seeing for sure. Another one would be, can we please kind of look at letting go of credentials? RBC Canada has coming up with all this really important information around human skills wanted, and it's all about skills and competencies. We have to start letting go. Is education important? Yes, but so are skills and competencies, and we really have to be harnessing those. Professional experience and credentials from other countries are important. They matter. They contribute to our local labor market. And even though they may face challenges, nevertheless, they love Quebec, they love Montreal, and they want to stay and raise their families here. So moving forward, we have a lot still coming up. We have a speed matching and networking event that we're doing in February of 2019, so we will be asking you to hold a date. We're going to be producing a short video on some of the journeys that these folks have gone through at different phases to sort of see where they end. We've been partnering with a lot of local businesses to ensure that we have enough mentors, placements, job shadowing, all kinds of things. And we really want to continue this amazing project. We are so happy. And that's it, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and good afternoon. So again, my name is Zehavi. Thank you all for joining us. I am the programs director at DESTA Black Youth Network, and I just want to mention before I begin, and I'll state the obvious here, although I'll be speaking about the Black community and some needs in the Black community, and particular to DESTA's demographic of participants, I'm not Black, and I'm not going to attempt to speak on behalf of the Black community or for the Black community, but very specifically about needs and information that is accessible to you all and ways that we can all get involved, and particularly about the CIF Entrepreneurship and Employability Project that we brought to DESTA. And I came in the capacity as a partner to DESTA when I brought that project, and have since become the programs director, and I'm very honored and excited to have that position. So just a bit of context and background. So DESTA Black Youth Network is located in Little Burgundy. It's actually a neighborhood that I have a very long connection to. I'm a community member, and that's how I came to arrive at DESTA. So the mission of DESTA is to serve participants across Greater Montreal, Black youth 18 to 35, in the areas of education, employability, and entrepreneurship, and help them achieve their goals through a holistic and individualized approach. So a bit of history about DESTA. It started in 2006. I'm just going to adjust this because I feel like I didn't realize you were shorter than me.
I are.
I'm usually the shortest one. So DESTA started in 2006 to address the needs of Black youth 18 to 25 years old in Little Burgundy and beyond. So originally the target demographic was 18 to 25. It started with a Skills Link grant from Government of Canada's Youth Employment Services, and now Yes actually has a Skills Link ongoing at the moment, and DESTA no longer has that Skills Link. But the Skills Link program was very successful. They ran 2 cohorts, and then they decided to open DESTA proper, offering individualized support in 4 pillars. So the 4 pillars were education, mental health, justice, and employability. Originally, DESTA did a lot of justice work, individualized justice work, supporting participants through the justice system. So that could be assistance with going to court, accessing lawyers, translating court documents, and coming out of incarceration. And the core programming of DESTA was the distance education program, and that was in partnership with the Eastern Township School Board, and it helps participants finish high school at their own pace. So the Community Innovation Fund at DESTA, CIF project as we call it, is what we brought in June of 2016. There's Dave McKenzie, he works in this building. So a bit of background about Little Burgundy. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Little Burgundy. It's very close to here. If you Google Little Burgundy, this is what comes up on Google. Little Burgundy is an upbeat neighborhood along the Lachine Canal, home to families and young professionals. The path along the water is popular with joggers and cyclists and leads to the Art Deco Atwater Market, filled with vendors selling produce, cheese, and meat. Stylish restaurants and expensive restaurants, I'm going to add, and cafes line Rue Notre Dame West, and antique dealers, upscale home stores, and fashion boutiques dot the area. So that's what you're going to get if you Google Little Burgundy today. But that's not really the history of Little Burgundy, and if you've lived in Montreal for any more than 15 or 20 years, you're probably familiar with a different type of Little Burgundy. That was, in many ways, it was considered not a very good neighborhood, which is often code for a black neighborhood. And that is the history of Little Burgundy. It is the historical home of English-speaking Black Montreal. So originally the area was called the District of Saint Antoine. It was much larger to begin with. It went all the way to Peel Street. It was much bigger. It went north. It was a much bigger district. As I said, it was the historical and is the historical home of Black Montreal, English-speaking Black Montreal, originally with a lot of Americans coming up to work on the railroad, West Indians who came a little bit later on, and then Canadians, Black Canadians from Nova Scotia as well. It is the seat of many really important Black institutions in the city. Union United Church, Union Congregational Church originally, established in 1907. The Colored Women's Club, 1902, UNIA, and the NCC, which is pictured here and is unfortunately now no longer there. It currently has a population of 19% Black residents. The demographics have changed somewhat in the last few years in terms of the residents, including the Black residents. There are a lot more African residents coming in, French-speaking, Haitian as well, so it's a bit of a different mix. But of course, the English-speaking, the historical community is still there, and even though many people have actually moved out of the community because they can no longer afford to live there, they still come back for church or just to come to the park. Their kids go to daycares in the area, or they attend Tyndale St. George, which is a community center in Little Burgundy. So, as I mentioned, there are a lot of changing demographics, which include immigration, increasing gentrification, and that has resulted in a lot of displacement for the original community members. There are polarized income brackets, so if you look at the income of Little Burgundy, it goes all the way up into 6 figures, and there are some people living below 20 grand a year. So it's very polarized, not much in the middle. And those polarized income brackets are also visible along racial lines and in geography. So those making 6 figures are overwhelmingly white, and those making much, much less are Black and brown. Sorry. Geographically speaking, most of the Black residents are located in the northeastern quarter of Little Burgundy, so closer to Guy, closer to up here, where there's a lot of subsidized housing. Sorry, I'm like running out of breath. So, just a little bit of information about English-speaking Black Quebecers. This is based on the stats that I was able to find. There's approximately 54,000 English-speaking Black Quebecers in the province of Quebec. Most of them are living in Montreal, and they make up about 7.5 or 7.7 or 7.9, depending where you look, of the total English-speaking population in the city. The biggest demographic in terms of age are 24 to 44 years old, which includes the demographic that we serve mostly at DESTA. The majority of our participants are between 25 and 35. And if you're interested, it's 47% men and 53% women. So, a bit of information about education. As you can see by the charts that I laboriously created for you, English-speaking Black Montrealers are completing, English-speaking Black Montrealers hold a secondary school diploma only at a rate of 27.4% compared to non-visible minority English-speaking Montrealers at 23.5%, and non-visible minority, that means white, French-speaking Montrealers at 19.2%. So that means that 27.4% of English-speaking Black Montrealers only have their DES. 14.4% have a trade school certificate. So we see a lot of English-speaking Black Montrealers going to trade school. There is a chart missing in the middle here, which is pre-university programs. We see at the CEGEP level, it's about even, approximately. But at university level, it drops. Am I losing the mic here? Okay. At the university level, it drops considerably. So we have 14.1% of English-speaking Black Montrealers with a university diploma or degree, compared to 32.2% of white English-speaking Montrealers and 28.6% white French-speaking Montrealers. And in the category of no certificate, diploma, or degree, 23.1% English-speaking Black Montrealers do not have any certification, degree, or diploma of any kind, compared to 14.8% of white English-speaking Montrealers and 19.7%. So the numbers are quite alarming. With regards to employment, unemployment, and income, English-speaking Black Montrealers have a much higher unemployment rate. It's almost twice the number of English-speaking white Montrealers. Their income, under 53.2% of English-speaking Black Montrealers are living under $20,000 a year. That's nothing. 39.7%, that's almost 40% of English-speaking Black Montrealers are living under the low-income cutoff. The low-income cutoff is where your income, 20% of your income more than 20% of your income goes to housing, food, and utilities, and clothing. So that's a pretty significant number, 40%. And only 9.5% of English-speaking Black Montrealers are making over $50,000 a year. And I think we can all agree it's not very much these days, compared to 25% of English-speaking white Montrealers and 23.6% French. So the numbers are really, like I said, they're very alarming. One area where English-speaking Black Montrealers and Black Canadians in general are overwhelmingly overrepresented is in the justice system. So Black Canadians make up about 3% of the population, and they are represented at about 9% of the federal penitentiary population, so 3 times. So, back to our program. When we arrived at DESTA, as I mentioned, there were 4 pillars: education, mental health, justice, and employability, all very important areas of work. The education pillar was the only one that had structured programming. And obviously education is very important, and we wanted to connect with DESTA because DESTA had this very important program in place, and we thought that it would complement the entrepreneurship and employability program that we were bringing in. Now, since we've gotten there, the board actually regrouped and decided, based on the success of the program, that they were going to revise the mission, which I showed you the first slide, to focus on education, entrepreneurship, and employability. The reason being the slides and the charts that I just showed you. So now the 3 programs that we offer at DESTA are education, employability, and entrepreneurship, and we offer the mental health, justice, and all of the support services as wraparound, holistic services available to all participants who are registered in one or more of these programs. So this is what it looks like. This is what my brain looks like all the time. Yeah. So you can see on the right side, that's education. We have vocational education support, Line Wolf distance learning high school, on-site tutors for high school and CEGEP. We're expanding that to the university level. And also an Espoir bursary fund, which I'll talk about a little bit later. So the rightmost column is what we inherited from DESTA, and everything else is what we brought with CIF. So I'm not going to go through all of these boxes with you. I'm just going to share with you some of the most important highlights, because it's not a very clear slide either, and it probably confused you as much as it confuses me, because it spins around in my brain every day. Okay, so CIF at DESTA. What sets us apart from other employability and entrepreneurship programs is that we're really not focused on numbers. We're focused on impact. For us, that's much more meaningful. We are trying to achieve sustainability for participants and not just the program. We want participants to develop sustainable living. We want them to make more money, be able to support their families, feel good about what they do. And we have a very simple and individualized approach. So participants themselves determine their own goals in either entrepreneurship or employability, or both, if they so desire. Participants can set multiple goals, both short and long term. We have a comprehensive intake process to identify strengths and anticipate potential obstacles to success, and to determine best plan to work with participants to overcome them, determine the best plan. And we have many options for training and integrated learning. In terms of entrepreneurship, the entrepreneurship program is offering multi-level training and support for new and existing Black-owned businesses on-site at DESTA in partnership with first-class institutions and organizations, such as John Molson, where we are today. We are offering workforce development that doesn't shy away from addressing the unique issues that English-speaking Black job seekers face in Quebec. We offer on-site paid training programs in reception and outreach for more vulnerable youth, and by vulnerable I mean those with criminal records, limited or no working experience. And we're offering tech-based training programs. And the reason that we're focusing on tech is because we're seeing that they generally have lower barriers to entry. There's a lot of initiative and a lot of tech-based industry to hire more inclusively, have more diversity, more gender parity, and they generally are less concerned with scholastic and academic background and more concerned with your actual training and ability. Again, we're offering tech-based training programs because they offer good entry-level earning potential. You can make a lot of money in tech. We're offering them because they have growth and fast upward mobility that is possible, and they're a great alternative to the trades and vocational sector for individuals with limited education. In entrepreneurship, we have a great partnership with John Molson School of Business Community Service Initiative. It's a starting your own business course, and it's a 12-week training to entrepreneurs on-site at DESTA 3 evenings a week. We offer assistance with bookkeeping, marketing, and corporate legal services for startups and small business owners, as well as tutorials in QuickBooks for DESTA entrepreneurs. We have workshops on business-related topics with industry professionals, access to DESTA's co-working space, which is currently in development, but they're free to use the whole building, the Wi-Fi, and computers which we purchased for them. And one-on-one mentoring and business coaching for entrepreneurs at all stages of their business development. So the current status of the entrepreneurship program is that we are beginning our third cohort, our third group of the John Molson course will be starting in January of 2019. We're currently supporting 15 businesses with a total of 25 participants registered in the entrepreneurship stream. And just to give you some perspective, we have 82 total participants at DESTA, so that's a pretty good number. We've offered workshops in marketing, banking, corporate law, and investing with some first-class partners. We are currently redesigning the space of the basement to create a co-working space, and that's in partnership with some pretty big Montreal designers and architects, so we're very excited about that. And we've established the Espoir Bursary Fund to assist with startup growth capital and also tuition for DESTA business owners. So if any of you want to contribute to that, you can get at me later. So some of the challenges that we've encountered is that many participants were not able to complete the Start Your Own Business course. Some of the reasons for that were schedule. Most of them were working during the day, so they were coming to DESTA at 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. after a long day of work is pretty difficult, especially when you're not used to going to school 3 times a week. Many of them had families to take care of, which could mean small children and parents. So they were bringing their kids. We were offering the children meals, and we had childcare on site to make it more accessible for the parents, but it was still quite difficult. Some people didn't have a viable business idea. They just weren't ready. Their business idea hadn't been completely thought out yet, and they just weren't ready for such an intensive course. And some people didn't have the study and literacy skills necessary. Another challenge that we encountered with entrepreneurship was a lack of startup and growth capital, and also a lack of assessment and work tools for both the entrepreneurs and the mentors. So some of the solutions that we have taken on to address these challenges is now we'll be offering a business boot camp, 3 weeks long, with John Molson School of Business again, to sort of assess where the person's business idea is, how ready they are for a next level business course. Do they need more coaching? Do they need to go back to the drawing board? Is there a better solution or pathway for them? Do they need more specific training in the area of business that they wish to pursue? We'll also be offering a next level business course in between the Starting Your Own Business and the Business Bootcamp, which is an introduction to business course in partnership with CDEC, and we're really excited about that partnership. It's an 18-week course, it's only 1 class per week, and it's MELS accredited. So for individuals who don't have high school or they don't have anything post-secondary, having this certificate can be very beneficial and also very can make them feel quite good about their accomplishment in completing the course. We're developing a mother tongue literacy course. As many of you probably know, in Quebec we have Bill 101, and for individuals who came here as children or their parents came here from the West Indies, they perhaps were not permitted to go to school in English. So even though English was their mother tongue, they went to school in French and they never quite mastered literacy, literacy levels in either language in some cases. So we're offering mother tongue literacy. And we'll continue, of course, to offer childcare and meals for the children to make it accessible. For the startup costs, as I mentioned, we have the Espoir Bursary Fund that will assist with that. We'll have grants of $3,000 to $5,000 with a very flexible payback plan for participants. So they can have some money what would potentially replace the love money that a family member might give to them to open up a business. And again, through our partnership with CDEC, we're going to have access to a phenomenal tool called the Growth Wheel, which is a cloud-based tool with a number of assessment sheets and work plans that participants, the course facilitators, their mentors can all fill out and share together and share information remotely to assess the development of and the weaknesses and where they need to do more work in the business. So we're very excited about that. In the area of employability, some of the highlights are that we are designing workforce development program for individuals with pre-employability needs. We have supported job placement with corporate partners. We're offering marketing and data analyst training programs with Cometa Communications and Unibureau, and I'll talk about those in a moment. We have reception and outreach internships for more vulnerable youth reintegrating the workforce, and career counseling and assistance with job searches, CV and cover letter writing, etc. So the current status is we have 40 participants with employability needs varying from non-urgent to very urgent, and 11 of those participants have since we arrived and started the program have found work, and 13 have been placed in paid training programs that we created at DESTA. We have 2 reception intern positions. We just finished the first cohort of that. So 2 reception interns completed their internships. 1 has gone on to full-time work. The other one is now starting the data analyst training program that we're offering. And we have 2 open vacant positions that we are interviewing for now. We have 5 participants who were selected out of 40 applicants for Tech Bureau Data Analyst Training Program, which is 18 weeks, 30 hours per week paid, and it started yesterday. We have 1 fundraising intern and 1 social media grant writing intern currently on staff. All of these are paid. And we just hired an employability outreach worker to assist with CV writing and job applications. So some of the challenges that we've encountered with regards to employability is that for individuals who actually do have a lot of training, we have some newcomers coming from the West Indies, from African countries, and they have completed university potentially. They have a lack of networks. So we're putting them, I'll speak about solutions in a moment, but we're seeing that there is a small demographic of people who have training and skills but just don't have access to networks. Many participants with limited work experience or who have been out of work for a long time are lacking soft skills. Mother tongue and French language literacy are a problem, low computer skills, some psychosocial challenges, particularly with those coming out of incarceration, difficulty finding work with a criminal record, and a desire to upskill. So people may have jobs, but they're not satisfied, they need something better, they need to make more money. So to address the issue of people who are coming here with limited networks, we are connecting skilled individuals with networks and employers and mentors and hiring as many of them at DESTA as we can. To address the issue of the need for soft skills and pre-employability, we're currently developing a 4-week employability skills training program in partnership with CDEC, and it will cover soft skills, basic job search training, computer and media literacy, financial literacy, and it will have a component of culturally relevant therapy-based workshops. For the issues of mother and French tongue literacy, we're developing that mother tongue literacy program that I mentioned, and we'll be offering French language literacy soon. For low computer skills, we offer ongoing tutoring and tutorials, computer training in Excel, the whole Microsoft Office suite, as well as Salesforce. And for psychosocial challenges, we're offering some workshops and mentor matching and referrals to appropriate professionals. Okay, gotta speed up. For individuals who are experiencing difficulty finding a criminal record, we have on-site paid training programs so they can get some employment experience paid and get something on their resume. And we have a partnership with the National Pardon Center to access lawyers. And we're embarking on advocacy initiatives for the right to employment. And for those who have expressed a desire to upskill, we're offering those tech-based training programs I mentioned. So there's Tech Bureau, there's a digital marketing program we'll be launching early 2019. We're currently seeking a partner for a coding program, and we've been exploring partnerships with post-secondary educational institutions for continuing education and academic programs, because if people want to become lawyers, we want to support them to get there. So, community vitality, right? That's what we're here to talk about. So this is a nice quote that I pulled again off the internet. Vital communities are those that have strong, active, and inclusive relationships among people, private, public, and non-governmental organizations that foster individual and collective well-being. It's a very nice quote. It says a lot, doesn't say much at all, right? So the idea there is that, it sounds great, but it's sort of making the assumption that everybody's coming from the same background, has the same opportunity, the same starting point, and doesn't have any barriers. They just need to all get together and be vital, right? And that's not the case. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of removing barriers, giving better access, meeting people where they are, and addressing systemic issues. And then maybe this would be possible. So what we are trying to do at DESTA in a small way with a small demographic of a very specific clientele is to do just that. So through education, entrepreneurship, and employability, we are attempting to remove barriers to education and training, particularly at the post-secondary level and in STEM, to increase Black representation in academic, professional, and tech-based fields. We are trying to promote Black entrepreneurship and support Black businesses to help create sustainable Black community wealth. We think it's important to share resources, tools, capacity building, and financial knowledge and opportunities. And we need to address systemic issues, systemic racism in the justice system, and improve reentry services and employment opportunities for reintegrating English-speaking Black community members. So that's what we've been working on. Thank you. Questions? Yes, Dr. Bain.
I can tell you from our experiences comes out of this program, of course, from the Institute for Community Entrepreneurship and Development that set up the framework that from which they works.
Right.
But we found out that there's another problem, that a whole large number of Blacks who benefited from the work that was done in the 70s and 80s at Berkeley University have left.
Mm-hmm.
They have left because of the last statement you just introduced, systemic race discrimination and racism. And that so the work that DESTA is doing right now is fantastic in terms of those that may not have finished going to college or going to university and dropped out in the first year, things like that. But we are losing, and people who give the kind of mentorship, leadership, the motivation for my grandchildren, for instance, to want to succeed. They're all in Toronto.
Yeah.
So the problem focus that I think you need in order to ensure that the wrong work that you're doing at this level is incredible, continues to work from the household, for instance, and from the community leadership, needs increased initiative and aggressiveness in getting rid of the systemic racism in the system. And the systemic racism, unfortunately, is almost constitutionalized because it has given us, say, the right to use an notwithstanding clause if we are threatened, if we feel threatened by the vitality of any particular community that is not French.
Mhm.
So we have a very serious problem to deal with in order to support what you're doing, to make what you're doing truly successful. And that's what some of us are trying to address at this point in time. How do we we are looking to find not equal employee higher employers. We're trying to find actual employers who are committed to diversification beyond, let's say, all the different European countries, diversification in terms of race and ethnicity, those kinds of employers. Because we have not had any success when we brought other employers in, they just come to set up their booths and they do a marketing, we love you, we're here sort of thing, and go back and never hire. What we need is to somehow or the other go out and find diversity employers who are prepared to work to make this market different and the society different.
Yeah.
And that's where
It's a huge challenge.
that's the problem we have at this point.
Well, I thank you. I thank you for the comments, and I definitely agree. The participants that we work with are majority individuals who haven't completed school or only have high school, many of whom have criminal records, so they don't represent the more qualified professional Black Montrealers that you're speaking about, but it's absolutely true. There was a huge exodus, and even in my own home we often discuss leaving Montreal because my partner has a really hard time finding work. So it's a real issue, and it's definitely something that needs to be addressed. I fear that the sort of intersection, the combination of language and race in this problem makes it especially problematic, and so there is a lot of work that needs to be done. I agree. Yes?
One more question.
Actually, I thought it was really interesting that you quoted the Canadian Index of Wellbeing. That's a project that happened, it's been happening in Ontario over the past 10 years. There's actually a lot of meat in that actually explores a lot of the statement that you said, which could be really, really useful, because I think one of the things that's really important to understand is that we're all sort of existing within a dominant culture. And the dominant culture is invisible. Those of us who are in it can't see it. And unpacking that is something that I think is really important to sort of taking apart some of the challenges. Like this work that both these organizations are doing is so important, but it's treating these symptoms. Whereas everybody's pointing out absolutely rightly that there are massive structural issues that are causing these problems. And if we don't have really impactful advocacy at a policy level, then we're not going to be dealing with it at sort of a macro level. And some of those, the barriers that you're talking about are unfair justice systems. They are legislation that's about to be brought into place that potentially negatively impacts a portion of the population. And I think there's work to be done in that, and there's work to be done in identifying how can we champion existing qualifications. How do we get our systems to recognize qualifications from other countries, because we have people coming here that are doctors in other countries, and they come here and they can't work as doctors. So it's almost like, how do we create the systems that recognize that better, so that the work isn't so much on the individual who's facing so many barriers just to get ahead, facing these massively oppressive systems. So I feel like as a community, if we can better advocate to change those things at a systems level, it'll make it easier for you guys.
I agree. Thank you. And I didn't mean to discredit or dismiss the quote and the work that went into it.
I was more thinking, look it up.
Telling you what
good.
we need to do.
I was, yeah, okay, thank you. I think I've run out of time, so if there are no more questions, I'll sit down. Thank you.
Hello everybody, this is my second I forget the names of the co-presenters, but moderated by Kate Lemast. It was a session about what would we do without English schools. I mentioned this project in my last presentation. So CAMI is a nonprofit organization, a regional association located in the Magdalen Islands, and we are multi-sectoral, so we work in every sector. We work on improving access and improving the quality of life and well-being for the English-speaking community where needed. So we're very thankful to the QCGN for the CIF project. We call it CIF on the Magdalen Islands. And Christine says, please don't call it CIF, call it CIF. So as part of the CIF, we have developed a project that's called Down Home Skills Development. This project focuses on introducing high school students, particularly boys, to vocational careers and trades programs. So just a little bit of the community demographics. We make up about 5% of the island's total population. In terms of income, we're a fishing community, so for 2 months of the year, we have a large portion of our population who are fishermen. So we have 28.5% of the total English-speaking population age 15 and over that's earning less than $20,000 a year. We have 32.5% of the total English-speaking population age 15 plus that are earning more than $50,000 a year. So this is our fisherman group, and 5% of the total English-speaking population that are living below LICO. Household living arrangements, we have 15.1% of the total English-speaking population who live in lone parent families. Educational attainment, so this is basically, these demographics are very relative to why we decided to take on this project. 62.3% of the island's total English-speaking population, age 15 plus, holds a high school diploma or less, compared to 48.2% of the Francophone population living in the region. We have 38.5% of the English-speaking population aged 25 to 44 who also hold only a high school diploma or less. So this is our parent population. We have 61.2% of the population aged 45 to 64 in the same situation, holding a high school diploma or less, and only 11.5% of the total English-speaking population aged 15 and over that have a university degree or higher. In terms of unemployment rates, the last census data in 2016 says that we only have a 2.5% unemployment rate, which I find very hard to believe. I think that must be because the census was carried out in May when everybody on the islands were working. So outside of May, June, and July, we have very high levels of unemployment. So what are some of the challenges that we face as a community? We have a high dependency on a resource industry, which is also seasonal, which is doing very well at the moment. Fishing industry right now in the Magdalen Islands is very lucrative. Permits right now are going for $500,000 plus. So to become a fisherman, you need to have some money in your pocket. But that could change on a dime. Right now it's doing very, very well. We don't have a control on that because it's controlled by Mother Nature. We have low levels of participation of the English-speaking community in tourism, which is also a seasonal industry. So for those of you that may know the Magdalen Islands, we have a very thriving tourism industry, of which we're trying to tap into the last 10 years. We've been fairly successful, I'd like to say, in doing so. We have low levels of education in the community, which also places low value on education. So we have kids in school with parents who have low levels of education who don't necessarily value the importance of education or see the need to have education because they've always had a tendency to succeed and be self-sufficient without having high school diploma or higher level education. We have a high dependency on federal employment insurance program. We have high levels of high school dropouts, particularly among male youth, which has been more and more evident in the last year. It seems the more lucrative the fishing industry becomes, the more devitalized the community becomes. We've lost 4 of our grade 9 students since May, so 14-year-old boys that have left the school system since May out of a class of 10 students. That's almost half of the grade 9 class. We have an English school that runs from pre-kindergarten to secondary 5, 45 students in total. So when you lose 4 students from your student population at 45 total students, we consider that a fairly big loss. Because not only are we geographically isolated as Magdalen Islands, we're also more geographically isolated as a community. The majority of the English-speaking population lives on the eastern extremity of the island, so we're about a 40-minute drive to the center. And so all the English people are concentrated into one community, so there's never seen the need to become bilingual because we had everything we needed within our own little community, which again translates into low levels of bilingualism. We have low levels of formal education, low number of certified skills, and unilingual population vulnerable to downturns in the economy. Despite the current economic situation of the community, there are high levels of disengagement, devitalization, challenges in securing community engagement, participation, leadership renewal, etc. Just to even find people to sit on boards and committees, to volunteer, to run for council. These are all the challenges that we're facing in light of those situations. So our program had really has two objectives. The first one is to develop and implement a hands-on program for vulnerable youth that will motivate them to complete secondary studies and provide them with skills to enhance their prospects of employability and capacity to engage in community life. So maybe they're not the target group we're working with, males. Maybe their goal is not to become academics, but they do have the capacity to do hands-on trades. So to become carpenters, welders, boat builders, what have you. That even though they're going to fish for the 2 to 3 month period, our goal is to give them the skills so they can go out and do something else in the other 8 or 9 months to keep them busy and give them a purpose. We also wanted to engage local human resources to work with the vulnerable youth in small teams or on a one-on-one basis to teach and mentor the youth in acquiring a practical skill set suited to future employable and entrepreneurial activities on the Magdalen Islands. So we want to be able to give them some skills. When they leave the school, we want them to have skills that they can use to actively participate in the community. So the activities for year 1, so the project was over 2 years, so we wanted to first do alignment, development of an extracurricular program in conjunction with the high school to ensure the project activities align with the educational goals while offering skills development. 2, mobilization, engage local human resources, fishers, mechanics, boat builders, crafters, etc. to provide training and skills development activities. Investment, to engage partners, to contribute financially, human, and material resources, and establish a model for ongoing activities, so for the sustainability of the program, and skills development. Involve vulnerable youth to develop vocational skills as a complement to their high school education. So what we did the first year, we hired a coordinator. We created an advisory committee, which was made up of the CAMI organization, school representatives, and an outside consultant that we hired to help us evaluate the impact of the project. We researched comparative models in other communities. We developed an operational framework, a work plan, and evaluation framework. We prepared presentation materials for potential human resources, for partners, to get investment. Mobilization, we identified and contacted potential human resources, so we went and met with different businesses that we thought would be interested in taking on students to provide the skills training. We delivered our orientation sessions, and we finalized individual agreements and training plans. We went and met with the partners, and we identified partners that we wanted to engage into the project, and we went and that would engage financially, because we needed, one of the goals of the project was to engage more than just the CIF. Our partners, our biggest partner obviously is the school and the CLC. Without them, this project would not be successful because it's their partnership that allows us into the school. ESDC, the Community Innovation Fund, QCGN, the Communauté Maritime, which is the provides the FDT funding program in our area. It's called the Fonds de Développement Territorial. It's offered through the agglomeration, or MRC we call it. The Carrefour Jeunesse d'Emploi, which is the fiduciary for the social development initiative in our area. The Fondation Magdalen, who controls or looks after the funding from COMPLIS, Groupe Persévérance Scolaire. The Caisse Populaire des Jardins, and CTMA, which is the local ferry company. For skills development, we identified youth participants. We targeted skills and program activities as it complements the school curriculum, and we implemented phase 1, which was a pilot program with select youth and community human resources. So last year we offered what we called the work program. So the work program was local human resources. So in this case it was a boat builder and small engine repair shop. Each of them agreed to take in one student each to provide them with the training and hands-on experience to do boat building or repair small engines. And what we did was we negotiated a rate where we paid them to bring in these students, because we too on the Magdalen Islands are experiencing human resource shortage. So to ask those people to bring on these students and be mentors and to provide training is another, it was more work for them. So we needed to give an incentive for them to bring on the student. And also because it was extracurricular after school, it was hard to engage the students. So we had to provide them with an incentive as well of being there. So we paid the business a flat rate per hour rate for 8 hours a week. And within that rate, we paid for their time to do the training, but we also asked them to pay the student minimum wage salary. Because we live in such a small community, our students don't have access to after-school jobs. We don't have McDonald's. We don't have these types of fast food places or places for students to have opportunities to work. So in addition to giving them a skill, it was also creating responsibility in the student, because they were expected to go to work. So it was, we realized that was a win-win situation. My son was one of the pilot participants, and he couldn't wait to go to work. It was a source of income for him, and so it was very much successful. The small engine repair was also a success, so successful that the student that went in the first year is also enrolled in a program with that same company this year. We did career exploration activities to expose students to different careers, day stages as vet techs, paramedics, mechanics, construction, dental. We did exposure to trades, so welding, diesel, construction. In our area we have a salt mine, so we were able to work with the salt mine to even organize an underground visit of the high school students. Year 2 we have kind of the same base of activities, just a little bit more. So we explored it, we expanded it into some other areas. We worked with a local greenhouse producer to develop plans for a school greenhouse and growing project, which included workshops on planting. We did the workshops on planting with the elementary kids. It was more geared towards that group of students. But what we did with the secondary 3 students was we hired a local carpenter to work with them to build the greenhouse and the garden boxes. So the secondary kids built the greenhouse, built the garden boxes. The elementary kids did the growing program and transplanted the plants into the greenhouses and the boxes in June when it was time to plant. We're continuing with the pilot program in collaboration with local businesses again this year. We continued, as I said, with the same student in the small engine repair and and then we've developed a new partnership with a construction company to send. So we have a new student who is going to work with a carpentry business. But this year we're not doing it as an extracurricular program, we're doing it as part of the school curriculum. We were able to negotiate with the school administrator and one class per week or one afternoon a week where these two students go to work in the businesses for an entire afternoon. So when instead of being at school, they're at the program. We drive them there. We have CAMI's purchased a van, so we have our own minivan that we use. We transport the students to the work program, and we bring them home. We've also incorporated a carpentry program directly within the school curriculum in collaboration with the school. So in the school, the children have POP class, which is introduction to career programs, and the art class. So we had the grade 1 group, which essentially was 10 students at one point. It's a little bit reduced now. But I must say, even the students that dropped out of school are still coming to the carpentry program. We said, you know what, we're not, if we can give them some skills, we're doing them a favor. We're not going to exclude them because they quit school. We're still going to make sure that we give them as many skills as we can. So so we have 2 groups. We split them into 2 groups for behavioral, because we want to make sure they're behaving. So we have half of them, so every second week they go to carpentry class, and that too is a complete afternoon every second week. So we've hired a local carpenter, and we've been able to rent a local workshop, and we have that happening. It's happening every week, but it's a different group every second week. Exposure, we did a lot of project promotion. We sold, so in the greenhouse and garden project, we sold a lot of the produce. CAMI had purchased a lot of the cucumbers and the beets that were produced, because we also have another project that we do. We've created a social enterprise, and we do pickling and jams. So we purchased a lot of the cucumbers and beets, and we process them, and we sell them as artisanal products in the summer. But we've also had beans and peas and peppers and things that were sold in local grocery store and promoted on Facebook. We promote the project in the CAMI newsletter and the Facebook pages. Again, we're going to do another round of exposure to new career opportunities for students through day stages, study tours, and guest speakers. This year we're doing a lot of evaluation, because we want to keep this program in the school after project funds have ceased. So we're at that stage where we've just done the evaluation, the midterm evaluation. So we're in conversation and negotiation with the school. I think the only challenge that we're going to face in the maintenance of the program is finding the financial resources to pay the businesses and to pay like a carpentry instructor. So we'll have to probably start to get out and try to find the resources for that. Investments, so we'll be reviewing, like I said, looking for a new round of committed partners for the financial needs that we'll have in the next fiscal year. That's it. Thank you.
And I've got 2 questions. One leads to the next one. Who's doing all this pickling with the kids?
Well, the kids didn't do the pickling.
Yeah.
We have a social economy that we have a bakery, and we sell baked goods in the summer, and we also sell pickles and jams.
This is CAMI that's doing that.
CAMI, yes, through a new social enterprise that we just created, was just incorporated in April. So we purchased the harvest from the students, and we transformed it ourselves, did the processing ourselves.
So that leads into my next question, which is, well, I think you probably answered it. I wondered how sustainable this is, because this takes a lot of energy.
It does.
I know you're the point person on it, but you know, how sustainable is this? Is there?
Well, if we can get the money for the carpentry person,
Yeah.
and I mean that's really all the energy that we'll need to put out, because we're already working with the school, and we have a great partnership with Nancy and with the administrators. So it's just we just need to find the resources to maintain the stuff that's happening outside of the school, because everything else is already in place within the school. The partnerships are there, the models created, so it's
What a
so
great example
money
of
is the issue now.
School community, right? There's the link. Terrific, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Great, thank you so much for having me. Katie Lowry, our executive director, was supposed to be with me today, but unfortunately she was unable to attend at the last minute, so hopefully I can get through the presentation on my own. So Phelps Helps is a rural community nonprofit. Actually, as of Thursday that changed, we received charitable status. So we're very excited. We aim to empower the community through educational and career support. Our mission is to increase community engagement through uniquely designed programming and to ensure members in this rural community have the support system that they need to graduate from high school and realize their future career and educational goals. So where Phelps began is very important to our story, and it'll give a good evolution into where we came in, where CIF came in to fill a major gap we realized. So Phelps began in 2012 when the co-founders met at the opening of an arena in the community and realized the elevated dropout rates. So while the province of Quebec, the Estuary region, and the MRC of Magdalen stood at a dropout rate around 18%, the municipality of Stansted was at 26.7%. So that's 1 in 4 of the youth in the community not finishing high school. This is the municipality of Stansted. We do serve the Stansted area, so that involves 4 different municipalities with a population of just over 4,000. A study conducted at Simon Fraser University estimated the costs to Canada for dropouts from high school. They estimated that the costs were $969 million to the social assistance system, $350 million to the criminal system, and $23.8 billion to Canada's healthcare system. The negative impacts of not completing high school in today's society are truly detrimental to the economy. Making our youth contributing members of society, improving their employability, and bettering their long-term health are at the heart of what we strive for, but it all begins with education. So in 2012, when the co-founders met, they put in place a high school tutoring program. This program was central in the Stansted community, so the students were traveling up to an hour and a half each way by bus to the high school. So allowing a service to be offered in their community was a big bonus for them. In that first year in the high school tutoring program, they got off the bus, they went in, they had a healthy snack, and they worked on their homework with our volunteers. We had 7 students in that first year. Now, we work in school years, so that's important to know. So this is the 2012-2013 school year. So last year, in the 2017-2018 school year, we had 69 participants in that program, 0 of which dropped out last year. At that time, so back in 2012 now, the coordinator recognized the importance of creating a connection and building trust with the students and their families before they transitioned into high school. So we put in place the SPARK program in 2012, which aimed to foster this relationship, as well as instill a love of learning through hands-on activities. So this took place at the local elementary school, in the after school, once a week. And it was the English elementary school. In the next year, the principal of that elementary school approached Phelps because they had budget cuts, which resulted in them losing their after-school homework program. They approached Phelps to fill this critical gap in services, and of course, without hesitation or secured funding, Phelps took on this mission. With elementary and high school programs going well, it was evident to the Phelps Helps team that the transition from an elementary school of 100 students to a high school with an enrollment of over 1,000 students with up to 3 hours on the bus each day was difficult on many of these rural kids. The mentoring program was put in place in 2015, where grades 5 and 6 students were paired with high school students to engage in activities exploring the Eastern Townships. These relationships resulted in the grades 5 and 6 students having someone that they could, a familiar face when they got to high school, as well as someone they could ask their questions and discuss concerns about high school with, while the mentors gained valuable leadership skills. Later that year, the summer program was put in place with similar objectives, but with an added objective of providing these mentors with their first employment experience. Then, thanks to CIF, we were able to grow and fill a new need that was identified. So a lot of our students were now graduating high school, but they shared a common struggle. What's next? And a lot of those that were struggling to complete high school, it was often due to a barrier with their French grades. So grade 11 French is required to receive their high school diploma, and a lot of them are struggling with this. We're located right on the border, so one whole side of our community is the United States. So it's a very Anglophone population. In 2016, 54% of the community was not speaking French regularly, and 23% could not express themselves in the French language. When we look at employment, the Stansted area is ranked with an elevated deprivation level. 34% of women and 27% of men ages 25 to 64 are not employed. And 67% of the population does not have a post-secondary education. So, with this information, Phelps and the help of CIF, Phelps has put in place first their Phelps en Français program to address the need for bilingualism and bridge the gap between the two language communities. With French being a requirement for high school, it was also a way for them to improve their grades. So this program actually was very similar to the high school tutoring program, but offered in a French environment. So the students would get off the bus at our location, they would receive one-on-one tutoring from our volunteer tutors, and they would be speaking to the tutor in French. That was the main difference, to build not only on their abilities in French, but their confidence and their attitudes towards the language. The attitudes was a major barrier to overcome. A lot of them were very reluctant to take on the French language, to speak French in public. With regard to employment and post-secondary education, we put in place our graduate support program. So this program was to offer workshops and one-on-one assistance for students transitioning from high school into post-secondary education, so CEGEP or vocational programs, or into the workplace. This program grew, we'll talk about it in a minute, but this grew outside of that mandate, and we were able to offer many other supports to the community members. We, for example, on our workshops, we offered summer job workshops. So we contacted local employers, made a list of summer jobs that were available, and opened it up to the community to come in to receive support to create their CV and apply to these open positions. We did CV workshops. We worked one-on-one with the students, really career counseling, helping them to find out what their goals were and how to get there. So as you can see, in that last year, so 2017-2018, we had 166 participants in one or more of our programs. So this is just an overview of all of our programs, but as you can see to the far right, we had astounding numbers in the two newest programs. We had 80 students on our graduate support program, and overall we had 160 participants in one or more. So obviously these numbers don't add up. A lot of our participants take advantage of multiple services that we have to offer. For our graduate support program, after 1 year, so that was happening this summer, we had 80 participants, so 220 more than we had budgeted in our CIF application. We had 10 that reattached to education, so most of these were youth who had, or some of them were in their 30s, they had dropped out of high school and they were looking to go back to get their high school diploma. So often adult education, there's a few cases where they were going into post-secondary, they just hadn't continued after high school. And 24 gained short or long-term employment. So some of the summer jobs falls in there, but also some long-term employment with our support. So the mandate brought in, we had many different people coming in for our support. So the original mandate was 16 to 35, but we had some 40-year-olds coming in and asking how they could finish their high school, and some 14-year-olds coming to make their CV for their first summer job. And of course, the older demographic, often if they didn't have their high school diploma, we were also helping them with other supports, childcare, housing. There's a lot of other logistical concerns that we had to address with them as well, which is important. We'll get to our collaborators shortly. So we were able to fill this critical gap in services with CIF, but we hadn't realized how big that gap was. For Phelps en Français, after 1 year, we had 50 participants, 100 more than we had expected to have in the first year. 7 of these students were actually elementary students coming to a high school tutoring program. So they were at the elementary level taking an initiative for their education and wanting that extra support. And we were starting to see a shift in the attitudes towards the French language. CIF allowed us to build many new partnerships. So in the first year, our number of collaborators went from 18 to 32, and our financial contributors from 18 to 38. So our number of partnerships significantly increased in this year. This leads to our sustainability as a whole. We had a hook. We would go into local businesses for financial support, but we had something to offer back. We can tell them about the employability workshops we're giving the local youth. And we were able to act as a middleman for the employer and the community member job seeking. We host, it'll be our second year this coming month, we host a local 5 set where we invite the local business owners to our location it'll be very casual, but to discuss the concerns they're having as employers and how we can assist them in that. And this year we're going to focus on job shadowing and things that we can do in collaboration with them, making sure that they're also able to be proactive with us. So just as a glimpse, some of our collaborators, we obviously collaborate with a lot of the local post-secondary educational institutions, as well as the high schools and elementary schools. We partnered with the LAMP Foundation this year to offer a scholarship bursary for our, one was for a student in high school moving into post-secondary, and the other is for a post-secondary student who has participated in Phelps programs either currently or in the past. We also work in collaboration with the Carte pour Jeunesse Emploi, so we're not duplicating services in the area. If we can refer to them, we'll support that referral, and they can even use our space to meet with our clientele. For our financial contributors, of course, CIF, Desjardins was one of our first supporters, and a lot of local businesses you'll see here. So from our 5 event, and just from speaking with local employers, they're on board, they want to support us in the community. So for our lessons learned, it does take a strong team of professionals who collaborate to prioritize the critical needs of a small organization growing at such a rapid pace. So when we get 226% more participants than we had expected, we have to adapt. We learned that overcoming reluctance and attitudes towards speaking French was a difficult task. Luckily, our coordinator, Alvin, at the back, the only male, has a strong pedagogical background. So he was able to put in place some tactics that I wouldn't have thought of that really encourage the students to speak French while they're at our sessions. And one-on-one support really results in a greater impact. So we did host quite a few workshops, but really working one-on-one with the students or the youth in the graduate support program really gave the best results. But also leading to my challenges is very time consuming. So we had a greater and broader need than we anticipated, but we wanted to ensure that the services we were offering were impactful. We didn't want to just keep it status quo. We needed to adapt. We needed to be able to serve the needs of the community. So for this year, I think Helena mentioned something similar, prioritized an evaluation. So we just went through an evaluation process, and we're also about to begin a strategic planning module with Innoweave, so that we can really grow in the way that best suits our organization as well as the community. And with success presents challenges and opportunities for growth. So all that to say, we are growing, we're adapting all the time, but we're looking to do that strategically, data-informed decision making. So now we're looking into our 2018-2019 school year. Facing the challenges and the lessons that we learned, we have rebranded the graduate support program to Compass to really connote the wider scope of services that we're now able to provide. It's not just for high school graduates. We're getting individuals from all levels, all ages, all different demographics and needs. So we wanted to give it a more inclusive title. We have expanded the Phelps en Français program to the elementary level. Similar reasons attaching them to us earlier on, but also at the high school level, we had elementary students coming to our high school sessions So we wanted to support them. Also, the principal had reached out to us and asked us to put this in place. And finally, we had also just added a family literacy program, which is external to CIF. However, it is a big way that we reach out to families as a whole, and it has a direct link to Compass. So offering financial literacy workshops or offering a budgeting workshop. We're able to, the coordinator of the Compass program will go to those workshops and connect with the parents, while the animator of the family literacy program is there for the younger children. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I'm the executive director of QUESCREN. QUESCRen has been around, or Park Extension User Organization has been around for 50 years. We have a very broad mission to better the lives of Park Extension residents with a particular emphasis on the youth and their families. We do everything from sports and leisure, summer camps, art therapy workshops, a drop-in center for young adults, and a variety of food services. So, ParkX, well, if you Google ParkX, that's exactly where it is, the north of Montreal. So you have like Rockland centered around here. You want to get situated. And it's about 29,000 residents. So it's one of the most densely populated neighborhoods in Montreal. It's also regarded as one of the poorest, with a poverty rate around 44%. It also has one of the highest number of immigrant families in Montreal, probably close to in Canada, and a very high percentage of people from visible minorities. So, what we did is we had a youth forum where we discussed with the youth exactly what they wanted as programs for the CIF. So when we sat down to talk to them, they were very worried about the employment opportunities that they were offered. So you can see that the employment rate in ParkX is 43.6% compared to 56.9% in Montreal. It's also a very high dropout rate. 49.2% of students do not graduate from the neighborhood high school, which is Lucien-Pagé. And approximately 90% of the residents do not speak French or English as a mother tongue. So that youth forum really sat down with us and decided what they wanted. So this is their mission statement that they came up with. They wanted the program to be called I Am Competent. And this program aims at quickly preparing young adults for employability by focusing on the acquisition of new skills and an internship, because they wanted concrete work experience, in a professional environment. This program will be given in a French immersion English context. So at the end of the program, the participants will feel that they have enough French skills to work in Quebec. So what did the youth choose as a project to work on? What skills did they want to develop? Well, we started looking into where there was labor shortages. That would get them quickly on the job market. And what we found out was there is a definite lack of employment in all the culinary skills. So we started working on a project with them. Our program is 15 weeks long, and this is for vulnerable youth. And when I mean vulnerable youth, many of them have issues with their parents because of a cultural crisis between the culture that they live with at home and the Quebec culture. 3 became homeless. 1 transitioned and went through gender reassignment during the program. 2 suffered from severe ADHD. And 1 had severe mood swings, and sadly had to leave the program for health reasons. But this 15-week-long program concentrated 10 hours on language, job search, cultural codes, visiting different restaurants and job opportunities that they could have, and visiting l'Institut d'Hôtellerie, Institut de Tourisme et d'Hôtellerie du Québec. They also had 20 hours a week of job training in a professional kitchen. So we hired 2 chefs that worked with them, and it's all French-based cooking that they learned, not just reheating stuff in the microwave to work at McDonald's. They learned to make everything from scratch, everything from sauces to pastries. We ate really well during the program because they fed us. Also, they received 16 hours of training by la MAPAC, which is the Hygiene and Food Safety. And this paper that you really graduate from this project, from this certification, they give us this certificate. And as soon as you have this certificate, your CV goes on the top of the pile for jobs. Because employers are required to have a certain percentage of employees that have this certificate. They have a graduation, of course, because we wanted to really valorize their accomplishments. And then they went for a 5-week internship, often paid. Often they got hired even before reaching internship. So that was the big aspects of our program. The results that we had: 76 of our participants received job offers. 83% said that they felt they had improved their language skills. And during the course of the project, we developed many partnerships, one with l'Association des Restaurateurs du Québec, which put us in contact with a wide variety of internships for our youth. And the thing is that I have 11 participants and 80 job offers from l'Association des Restaurateurs du Québec. So I couldn't fill the demand that there was for the project. We also ended up partnering with a nonprofit organization in Quebec City called Centre Rive 2000, because if Montreal, the food labor, we have a shortage in food labor, Quebec City is suffering. Restaurants are closing, not because there's no clients, there's plenty of clients, there's no staff. So their restaurants were closing, and they were telling us, please come visit us, bring your participants here, because we have very good paying jobs in the food industry. We have everything that they need. We have benefits, we have help for housing, we have retirement plans for them. And so we went about 4 times, and there we opened the project, not just to our participants of this program, to anybody in Parkettes that wanted to go around. And so far, 11 families have moved to Quebec City. One's also moved to Ontario. And just last weekend, we brought 48 more people to Quebec City. And I know, they don't know yet, but 36 people, because some of them went with their families and all that, have job offers waiting for them as we speak. So how many will relocate? I have no idea. So actually right now, we are also in discussions with Le Toki, which is Normand Laprise's restaurant, that is opening a kitchen, a production kitchen in Parkettes and a little restaurant. And he said he would be very glad to have interns from our program come and stage with them, and also will definitely consider hiring them in the future. I wanted to put a face to our success, and I have her permission to share her story, but she wants me to change her name. She wants me to call her Sade. So, Sade is Muslim. She is originally from Zambia. When I met her, she had only been in Canada for 5 months. She's only 18 years old. And her story is very touching because she was told at the age of 16 that she knew enough as a girl in Gambia, did not have to go to school anymore. And then she found out that her father was going around looking for husbands for her. And she was having none of it. So, unbeknownst to her family, she applied for refugee status in Quebec. And one day, basically told her parents, I'm going off shopping, I'll be back later, and never returned. She's still shopping here. But basically, she came here to Canada, and went through our program. At first she was at les écoles de francisation, but she was really struggling. She's like, I just can't learn the language. I'm just not getting it in this really structured way. And I have a rent to pay, I have to feed myself, I'm here by myself. What am I gonna do? So we told her, come learn French with us. We'll teach you French, but like concrete French, that you'll be able to apply in the job market very fast. And this girl got hired as a cook right away. She ran a kitchen with 5 employees right away. Like she's astounding. She made the valedictorian speech at her graduation. She's perfectly bilingual now. Speaks fluent French. Was hired by the airport. She worked there managing catering and all the foods that go on the flights. And now is still working full-time, but wants to go back to school. And now she's in her, she started, her first year of nursing school while working full-time. So this is the kind of success that we've had. One of the challenges that we're having right now is that we apply, we're very lucky right now that we got extra funding from Capital One that has financed an extra part of this project. The CIF has been very, very helpful in us developing these corporate partners. And despite all of our success, it's hard for us to find funding because foundations or normal funders don't see the food industry as a way to come out of poverty, while we're showing them concrete results that it does. So some of these people have salaries that they're coming out $20 an hour plus all benefits and retirement funds. So that's one of our biggest, moving forward, that's one of our biggest challenges. So I was short. I know time is short. So, sorry.
I had the privilege of attending the graduation ceremony of the second cohort. She must have been your first cohort?
Yeah.
Yeah, she wasn't the valedictorian. Not a dry eye in the house, and really proud. And if you could have seen, it was the students from your program, but it was their families. It was seeing the pride of their families. A lot of these people have families.
Oh yeah, they're very young, but they have families.
Sorry, you had a question, Annalise?
Well, I just really want to sort of echo, like, wow, that's incredible. Really incredible. Like, I'm totally blown away. All of these projects are just one of the things that I really want to say is, like, listen, it takes a lot of people to make the world go round. And this project is an example of, like, what is deemed acceptable in the context of work or profession.
Yeah.
Well, you know, everybody's got to eat, and we need cooks, and not everybody wants to be an engineer, or an astrophysicist, or a doctor, or a lawyer, or a teacher, or a counselor, or a director of a nonprofit, right? So I really think that part of our role on the ground is to really push that message forward. It's really important. And there's a lot of dignity attached to this that's getting lost. And dignity is not being held in place for a lot of the clients that we all serve and we work with, and that's absolutely unacceptable. Unacceptable. So, I mean, really, like, hats off. That's incredible.
What budget do you need?
To run a session is about $24,000.
For 11,000?
No, I can do 22.
Okay. To change a life? Thank you to all of our presenters. And what we tried to do today was take a little bit of a different spin vitality of our community. Because I think as all these projects have demonstrated, there's more to education than sitting in a classroom. And what all of these groups have been able to accomplish through the Community Innovation Fund is to give pride and tools and skills to members of our community. And in our definition, that's great education. So keep up the good work. Thank you very much and have a great